All right, so Bradford, you and I really like Tesla, not only because we think it was a great investment back in the day and still is to this day, but also because we can really get behind its mission. We've recently found another company that has a similar kind of property where it's a great investment, we think, but also has a really great mission. Why don't you share a little bit more about this latest company we found?
Sure. The company is MAIA Biotechnology, and the ticker symbol is MAIA. And what they do is they work on cancer drug. And problem with trying to tackle cancers with various drugs is that there's all these different proteins and things where you can attack cancer, and you need a different drug for each cancer. But what they found a number of years ago was that telomerase, an enzyme, is highly active in over 20 major cancers. So, big cancers, not just rare cancers. So telomerase is potentially a universal or nearly universal target for many cancers. And what's interesting about telomerase as an enzyme is it's not very active in the rest of normal human cells. So when we're growing up, it's very active until we're about 1 years old, and then it largely goes away as our cells are developed. Um, so MAIA Biotechnology, they have a drug called Thio that tricks the telomerase in cancer into grabbing it or receiving it in its receptor, and it's doing that by tricking it into thinking that it's the G in DNA, so guanine. So it's one of those four letters in DNA, and it grabs it and it messes with the genetic material of the telomerase and ultimately damages and potentially kills the cancer.
So a lot, if you think of a therapy like chemotherapy, it's kind of a like blast every cell and hopefully kill enough of the cancer without killing, too many inadvertent cells, which are healthy and functioning. What's really interesting about Thio is that it's something like a heat-seeking missile because for the most part, the vast majority of the cells in our body aren't emitting telomerase, but tumor cells very much are. So why don't we talk a little bit about the dual ways in which Thio actually works to attack cancer cells or to
Yeah,
or I guess to provide good outcomes.
yeah. So I already talked about one of them, but the other one is it ripens up the cancer so that a type of drug called checkpoint inhibitors, it's otherwise known as immunotherapy drugs. One of the largest drugs on the market is called Keytruda. I believe Merck makes that. And what it does is it ripens up the tumor so that the checkpoint inhibitor can also work on it. So the Thio from MAIA Biotechnology works on it, but it allows the checkpoint inhibitor drug to work on it even more. And then it potentially creates an immune memory where the body fights the cancer from proliferating throughout. So there's a potential that it stops the tumor growth, but it also may shrink the tumors. And it's early in the life of MAIA Biotechnology. They're in a phase 2 drug study right now. So it's on humans. It's on non-small cell lung cancer. So it's this it's the most prominent killer of people in the US among cancers. So this is a big cancer type. It's not rare. And the early results are promising. So far on a third line of treatment, so third time someone's trying to treat their cancer, it's extending their life by 50%. And we think it's looking likely that it's going to double survivability. So how many months they could live. So it's looking promising. And this is just one type of cancer. So they could take this compound or a similar compound they've already developed and look at other cancers. And they're able to do this in cooperation with Regeneron, who has this magic mouse that also works, it mimics the human immune system. So if it works on the mouse, you can reasonably believe that it's going to work in the humans, and then you proceed from there. Um, so that's what has us really excited. There are some risks, though. Should I start talking about those?
Yeah, let's get into that a little bit, and then
Okay.
maybe we can kind of bring it back for the overall summary toward the end.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll talk about the catalysts. So the catalysts are that the study's ongoing. So in about 3 more months, we'll get more data, and we should get a verification that the third line of treatment survivability is double. We'll get more data on how it does in the second line treatment. So one of the risks is that the one of the trials doesn't go well, and maybe the third line does fine, but the second line doesn't do as well. Um, there's a potential that their partner Regeneron is slow to make some kind of deal with them, financial deal. Um, and if they're slow to do that, that could put MAIA potentially in some financial trouble. But this is a deal the CEO of MAIA is working on and hoping to secure sometime this year. They'll get an upfront cash payment, and then they'll make an exclusivity deal with Regeneron for non-small cell lung cancer. Um, so that's the catalyst. Some other risks are just that MAIA Biotechnology, they're a very small company. They don't have a ton of cash. So in order to pursue more trials or to pursue the phase 3, they will need to raise cash in the stock market and other places. There's some potential that the FDA could take longer to approve it, or that they'll have some kind of hiccup in the commercialization.
Or even just the study results could come back unfavorably for some reason.
Mm.
And the other thing that I want to make sure people are aware of is that dilution is a given with this company. I
Yes.
mean, we're very early on. They're going to need to raise a lot of cash in order to reach commercialization, which right now they're targeting 2026. So there will be a lot of dilution, not just a little. So investors should be certainly aware of that, that even if successful, the shares outstanding will maybe triple somewhere in that neighborhood. I think is a reasonable estimate of just how much dilution is likely to occur. But that said, we think the opportunity here is really exciting. I mean, these are people in the trial who are extremely sick, have been
Mm.
shown resistance to both chemotherapy and checkpoint inhibitors, so basically have no other option.
Mm.
And the preliminary results we're seeing from this cohort of people in this third line is extremely promising. But it appears that this would be just as efficacious in earlier lines of treatment and potentially with less toxicity than the current standard of care. So,
Right.
you've got the kind of current treatment that they're targeting, which on its own would justify a much higher valuation if the company was able to successfully market a drug here. But at the same time, they're looking at other cancer treatments, they're looking at earlier lines of treatment. And then on top of that, they're developing new generations of the compound, which are about 1/10 the toxicity of thio, which really opens the door to allow different variations of treatment, potentially more aggressive frequencies of your regimen of how frequently you administer the drug, which is actually really important because not all of the cells are emitting telomerase at every single point. So
Mm.
that's a really important aspect. And then it also opens the door to potentially use a higher dose of the checkpoint inhibitor. So a lot of really interesting things, both in the short term with catalysts on potential deals, some early results, but also kind of in the medium term with commercialization. And then we think there's a kind of a long tail if this telomerase treatment is really the right approach, then there's a much larger potential for future market opportunities here. And it's important to note also that this is a first-in-class drug. They are the only company that's pursuing a drug with this specific mechanism in targeting the telomerase. So very exciting. We're really optimistic about the company, but
Mm.
it is an extremely high amount of risk. There's
Yeah.
probably greater than a 50% chance that the company doesn't make it. So if that's the case, then position sizing is extremely important. So we just want to make sure people are aware that this is high risk, high reward, not something you want to do, not something you want to kind of YOLO into with a huge percentage of your portfolio. And again, none of this is financial advice. We're financial advisors. We're always looking for opportunities like this, and just want to kind of open source our research as we're coming across it.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into the study results, and we're going to get into some of the financials, so some of the competitor valuations. And we're back, and we're going to deep dive a little bit into MAIA Biotechnology, or just provide a little more detail. This is from their investor presentation, June 2024. And you see a forward-looking statement. So our disclaimers ourselves are on hffinancial.com/disclaimer. We are long the stock, MAIA Biotechnology. And I want to take you to some of the crunch. So as you may know, demographics in the US, there's a lot of people that are aging up between now and here they're showing 2050. So population age 80 is going to triple over a very long time. And cancers tend to be concentrated later on in life. We do hear instances of people getting cancer in the middle of their life. It's very traumatic, but most of the time it happens later on in life. We talked about the dual mechanism. This is showing that here, where thio targets the telomerase, and then it works with a checkpoint inhibitor. In the phase 2 trial, they're working with Libtayo on the right, from Regeneron, and that's with the immune response. So when the same cancer comes, they're seeing in some instances where the immune system fights the cancer from getting established. Here they're showing a mouse trial where the mouse has cancer, and this is lung cancer. And for mice that were cured completely, they re-challenged with 5 times as much lung cancer cells, and it wouldn't take hold in the mouse. Mighty mouse, mighty drug, maybe. We'll see how it does it with humans. So one thing
That's a really big deal, though. I think investors should really pause on that. I mean, like essentially saying that your body has developed an immunity to cancer despite like directly injecting a very aggressive dose in there. Like that's
to this
obviously
cancer. So
yeah.
when we talk to Vlad, the CEO, they try another cancer and it still does take hold. So it's like it gets a memory to that cancer. Yeah, it's a big deal. The partnership Regeneron is pretty key. One aspect of it is there's a bit of an exclusivity deal already, where the phase 1 and 2 trial, where they're evaluating thio in combination with Libtayo from Regeneron, for that exclusivity, Regeneron gave them discounted cost on their Libtayo, and to the tune of $16 million, or maybe more than that. But that runs out at the end of the phase 2 trial, to my knowledge. Not everything we say may be correct, and we're not like committing to like clear up the record or anything. Here's the third line trial that we were talking about. Right now, the median survival is, I think it's 9.1 months right here. I'm not sure why they're showing 8.9. But essentially in 3 months, a good number of these folks are going to, just if they survive, they're going to make it to 12 months. So the median survival doesn't mean like it's done. The median survival is 9 months. So it's going to looking good to be 12 months. We'll see. And the overall survivability of the cohort is around 6 months. So for these patients where they resist the checkpoint inhibitor drug like Libthio, they resist chemotherapy. Um, this um, this way of doing it actually is working and meaningfully uh, extending their lives. So disease control rate is where you have stable disease, where you have a partial response. So the the stable disease is the purple, the partial response is the yellow, and and I'm not sure how it's measured. It might be like time spent in stable disease or partial response. I'm not sure. But versus chemotherapy, it's like a threefold better. So you can see the progression-free survival threshold was 12 and a half months or 2.5 months, and they've well crossed past that.
And I think it's probably worth noting too that like a lot of these metrics are kind of important. Like, okay, um, the response rate and some of these others, but overall survival is the most important metric, and they're doing extremely well on that
Hmm.
metric.
Here's some more comparisons. So where the person is not resistant to checkpoint inhibitors and you're doing chemotherapy, this is where you have. So they're like actually comparing the overall survivability to a worse, to like a harsher standard.
Yeah.
Um, so um, where you can do the checkpoint inhibitors, like the checkpoint inhibitors can help a little bit here, um, but it's still not very good. um, you're hoping that when you take these checkpoint inhibitors that the tumor shrinks, um, and that you're one of the lucky few, and that's not good enough for us. So they have some good results in mice with colorectal, where again there's an immune memory to the cancer. They cure it completely, and there's immune memory. Liver cancer looks really promising. I'm not going to go over all this. You can find their investor presentation. HCC is liver cancer. Here they're showing more with that. Here's a re-challenge. So they're re-challenging with liver cancer after the mice had liver cancer. You wouldn't do this on human trials.
No, no, you're not going to re-inject humans with 5 times the dose.
Thio is an old drug, but because they found this new way of it working, the FDA is giving them a marketing exclusivity uh, for each cancer after FDA approval. In other markets, it may be 10 years. Thio was studied in the 70s, but the science wasn't very good back then. I want to get into really briefly, Matt, the market. So the checkpoint inhibitor group 2023 sales was 46 billion. The big one there is Keytruda. Libdio is similar, but they entered the market late. So that Regeneron is partnering with MAIA so they can either meet that market that Keytruda is doing or surpass it.
Yeah, I mean that I think that goes a long way towards explaining why Regeneron would be so interested in having a deal with MAIA, because like very clearly kind of a laggard in the checkpoint inhibitor market. So if they can, have this standard of care essentially for a good chunk of the market essentially move towards you know, Thio plus Libtayo, their sales would increase pretty significantly. So it's well worth, we think, Regeneron investing in this to bring this drug to market. You know, we're talking about a $40 million deal potentially to you know, work towards commercialization of
Mm.
bio for a market that's 46 billion per year. So really
Yeah.
big opportunity here.
Basically like pennies for Regeneron, which has $100 billion market cap. So in non-small cell lung cancer, which they're in the phase 2 trial for, about 17 billion a year is the checkpoint inhibitor market just for that. So if Libtayo could take the crown from Keytruda, this would be a big deal for them.
Yep.
And here's some other comparables. Um, this Turning Point Therapeutics, when they were acquired, people were more excited about biotech, but they were in a phase 2, and they were acquired for 4.1 billion. And they're a cancer biotech that has some good promise, but their drug isn't as good as it's just more toxic. So I think it combines with the checkpoint inhibitors, but it's more toxic. It's, you know, more like kind of like chemotherapy almost. Mirati, it was different where they were in a commercial phase, and you know, this was later. So they had more cash, they were further along, so they were de-risked in some ways, but it's a similar product which we view as inferior to MAIA Biotechnology. So MAIA is looking to do a phase 3 trial starting next year unless they can get accelerated approval. So that's what we wanted to share. And, you know, we look at MAIA Biotechnology stock today, essentially at a market cap under 100 million. Certainly there's a ton of risk. But when you look at these other valuations, you look at the size of the market, there is going to be a lot of dilution in the stock. So, you know, remember all the risks we talked about earlier. We're not going to repeat them all. So the stock may quite literally be diluted 3 times. So the outstanding shares today and triple them essentially. It could be more than that, you know, who knows? But we see a lot of promise in this. So like if they win, if they can make it all the way through, you know, that's why, you know, we're looking at something like this that, you know, appears to be very high risk. I'm going to end it for now, but thank you for your attention and Matt for clarifying things and helping me talk through this. And with that, I'm going to say bye for now.
Bye for now.